53 years ago, the 4th of July was a proud day for our country. It clearly and accurately defined the rights of man. It shook as with the voice of a great earthquake, thrones which were seemingly propped up with Atlantean pillars. But there is an evil. It is a gangrene preying upon our vitals, an earthquake rumbling under our feet. It should make this day of fasting and prayer, not of boisterous merriment and idle pageantry. A day of great lamentation, not of congratulatory joy. Our garb should be sackcloth, our heads bowed in the dust, our supplications for the pardon and assistance of heaven. I stand up here not to impeach the character of one man, but of a whole people, to obtain the liberation of 2 millions of wretched, degraded beings over whose sufferings scarcely an eye weeps, or a heart melts, or a tongue pleads to either God or man. I regret that a better advocate has not been found. What the speaker lacks, the cause will supply. Now, I am not come to tell you slavery is a curse. I do not claim the discovery as my own. That, and if you know it, may say it, all men are born equal, and that among their inalienable rights are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. True. Now, neither do I intend to freeze your blood with authentic recitals of savage cruelty. My object is to define and enforce our duty. Now, on a subject so exhaustless, it will be impossible to unfold all the facts which are necessary to its full development. Let this be considered as the preface of a noble work, which your inventive sympathies must elaborate and complete. I assume as distinct and defensible propositions. 1, that the slaves of this country are preeminently entitled to the prayers and sympathies and charities of the American people. 2, that as the free states are constitutionally involved in the guilt of slavery by adhering to a national compact that sanctions it, they have the right to remonstrate against its continuance, and it is their duty to assist in its overthrow. 3, that no justificative plea for the perpetuity of slavery can be found in the condition of its victims, nor in the hazard of a collision with slave holders. Number 4, that education and freedom will elevate our black population to a rank with the white. In the first place, it is the duty of every nation to watch over its own interests. Let me not be misunderstood. I despise the littleness of that patriotism which blusters only for its own rights, which adopts as its creed the right to act independently without restraint, and to tyrannize whenever and wherever it can with impunity. That sort of patriotism is common. The condition of the slaves in a religious point of view is deplorable. Now, what has Christianity done for our slave population? Comparatively nothing. In her public services, they are seldom remembered, and in her private donations, they are forgotten. The blood of souls is upon her garments, yet she heeds not the stain. Every 4th of July, our Declaration of Independence is produced to set forth the tyranny of the mother country. But what a pitiful detail of grievances does this document present in comparison with the wrongs which our slaves endure. In the one case, it's hardly the plucking of a hair from the head. In the other, the crushing of a live body against the wheel. Before God, I must say that such a glaring contradiction as exists between our creed and practice, the annals of 6,000 years cannot parallel. I am ashamed of my country. I am sick of our unmeaning declamation in praise of liberty and equality, of our hypocritical cant about the unalienable rights of man. I come to my second proposition, the right of the free states to remonstrate against the continuance and to assist in the overthrow of slavery. But this, I'm aware, is a delicate subject, surrounded with many formidable difficulties. I know that we of the North affectedly believe that we have no local interest in the removal of this great evil, that the slave states can take care of themselves, and that any proffered assistance on our part would be rejected as meddlesome. But I believe that these opinions are dishonorable and unjust. This is a business in which we have a common interest, but we take no responsibility. Our hearts are cold. Our blood stagnates in our veins. I assert the right of the free states to demand a gradual abolition of slavery, because by its continuance, we participate in the guilt thereof. Amen. Not only that, are threatened with ultimate destruction, because they are bound to watch over the interests of the whole country, because their population is nearly double that of the slave states, because they are now deprived of their just influence in the councils of the nation, because it is absurd and anti-republican to suffer property to be represented as men, and vice versa. Because it gives the South an ascendancy over other portions of territory, and a power which may be perverted on every occasion. Now, I say that on the broad system of equal rights, this monstrous inequality should no longer be tolerated if it cannot be speedily put down, not by force, but by fair persuasion. If we are always to remain shackled by unjust constitutional provisions, if we must share in the guilt and danger of destroying the bodies and souls of men as the price of our union, if the slave states will haughtily spurn our assistance and refuse to consult the general welfare, then the fault is not ours if a separation eventually take place. It may be objected that the laws of the slave states form insurmountable barriers to any interference on our part. Answer: I grant we have not the right to use coercive measures. But do these laws hinder our prayers or obstruct the flow of our sympathies? No. Cannot our charities alleviate the condition of the slave? Can we not operate upon public sentiment, the lever that can move the moral world by way of remonstrance, advice, or entreaty? Is Christianity so powerful that she can liberate lands over which the darkness of superstition has lain for ages, and yet so weak in her own dwelling place that she can make no impression upon her civil code? Suppose that the slaves should suddenly become white. Would you shut your eyes upon their sufferings and calmly talk of constitutional limitations? No, no. Your voice would peal in the ears of taskmasters like deep thunder. You would carry the Constitution by force. If it could not be taken by treaty, patriotic assemblies would congregate at the corners of every street. The old cradle of liberty would rock to a deeper tone than ever echoed therein at British aggression. The pulpit would acquire new and unusual eloquence from our holy religion. The argument that these white slaves are degraded would not then obtain. You would say it is enough that they are white and in bondage, and they ought immediately to be set free. You would multiply your schools of instruction and your temples of worship and rely on them for security. But the plea is prevalent that any interference by the free states would only irritate and inflame the jealousies of the South and slow the cause of emancipation. If any man believes that slavery can be abolished without a struggle, he cherishes a delusion. No, we must expect a collision full of sharp asperities and bitterness. We shall have to contend with insolence and pride and selfishness, many a heartless being. But these can be conquered easily by perseverance and prayer. The prejudices of the North are stronger than those of the South. They bristle like so many bayonets around the slaves. They forge and rivet the chains of the nation. Conquer them, and victory is won. The enemies of emancipation take courage from our criminal timidity. They have justly stigmatized us, even on the floor of Congress, with the most contemptuous epithets. It is often despondingly said that the evil of slavery is beyond our control. Dreadful conclusion that puts the seal of death upon our country's existence. If we cannot unloose 2 millions of slaves now, how shall we bind upwards of 20 millions at the end of the present century? But there is no cause for despair. Let us take courage. Moral influence, when in vigorous exercise, is irresistible. It has an immortal essence. It can no more be trod out of existence by the iron foot of time or by the ponderous march of iniquity than matter can be annihilated. It may disappear for a time, but it lives in some shape or other, in some place or other, and will rise with renovated strength. Let us then be up and doing.